Callie Lawson-Freeman from the Las Vegas Review Journal. Thank you. You're needed for this conversation because Asia Wilson is continuing to do her things. She
Mhm.
is setting more records, Callie. So I'm just gonna throw it to you because Asia just set
Yeah.
another milestone, a Las Vegas Aces career achievement. Talk to
Mhm.
us about what she did and why it's so significant, Callie.
Yeah, I mean, she is now the all-time franchise scoring leader for the Aces, which is really cool if you put it into context. This is a franchise that has gone through so many iterations, Utah, San Antonio. And so, I mean, she was able to set this record she scored 20 points in a win over the Dallas Wings, or 28 points in a win over the Dallas Wings. And it was just an incredible showing. She was dominant. At one point, she was perfect from the 3-point line. Becky Hammon noted post game, like, Asia's going to be impossible to guard if she's going to keep shooting threes like this and make them. She eventually missed one in the fourth quarter, so she was 3 for 4 from the 3-point line, but it was just incredible to see. She was able to do it in front of Sophia Young Malcolm, who previously held the record. She had 4,300 career points as a member of the Aces organization. So now Asia has one more point than that. And she mentioned after the game, she didn't even know that she was close to beating that record. So her parents weren't there. Her parents come to almost every single game. They weren't there, but the Aces still celebrated. They poured water all over her in the
I
locker
saw that,
room,
the video,
which
yeah.
is hilarious because it was the hottest day in the history of Las Vegas. So I'm like, yeah, I think water was a good celebration, but I just history. And I think it was so cool that she was able to do it in front of the person that previously held it, in front of a lot of alum from, the Utah Stars and from San Antonio. Like there was like this heritage there that was really cool. And I think Asia made a point of emphasis to really give flowers to the women that came before her, because she was saying that, there were people who had to do extra just to even be half seen. And now she was like, we're playing on nationally broadcasted games, we're flying charter, and I want to give credit to them. So, I mean, it's so cool to think that she's being coached by Becky Hammon, who has her jersey retired by the Aces organization because she played for San Antonio. She's the number 3 all-time scorer in the franchise. Like, this is history in real life. Chelsea Gray reminded reporters after the game, she was like, you guys need to understand, like, this is a once in a lifetime thing that you're watching. She's going to be a Hall of Famer, and you'll be able to say that you watched her day in and day out. So that's something I try to remind myself of. It's incredible. Like, I love that the Aces keep trying to remind us that she's a once in a lifetime player, because it cannot be forgotten.
Generational. So you were there. What was the atmosphere like in the arena when it finally happened and she broke the record?
So cool. It was her second free throw. She'd made 2 free throws, and there was just like this sense in the building that history had been made. They called a timeout so that the Aces could fully acknowledge it. Everyone in the arena stood to their feet and just applauded. And I think that sometimes Asia, she's so humble. So she'll be very like deferential when it comes to things like this. And the team did not allow her to kind of like shy away. They put the cameras on her. They were like embracing her. And I just
I
love
love
that,
that.
because I think in any other situation, she would have tried to just go business as usual. But the Aces didn't. They said, no, time out. We're going to acknowledge this moment. And it was really cool to see, just look around the stadium and see everybody basking it in.
How did the opposing team react to it?
Oh, you know what? It's so interesting. That was a really chippy game. We saw Kate
Yeah,
Martin get her first
it was
WNBA
the
technical
Odyssey.
foul. It was tense. I didn't see any of them react, to be completely honest with you. They were
Okay.
trying to game plan in their huddle. So,
Because sometimes, teams stop and they appreciate when like an all-timer does something. But
I
yeah, it
didn't
was
see it.
trippy. Kate did not back down to Sims, just a side note. But okay, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, and credit to Odyssey 7, she was balling out. She was a problem for the Aces in that game. But yeah, it was tense. And I love that Kate Martin didn't back down. And so did the team. They loved it. They were tweeting about it after, like, welcome to the Aces, girl. You got your first tech. So, but yeah, I didn't notice any reactions from the Wings, but just the building overall, it was really cool to see. And I think, Asia stayed on the court for a while. She signed a lot of autographs, like she signed a lot of jerseys. it was just really cool to see. She hugged Sophia on the court multiple times. Just history in real life.
Well, listen, the Aces, they got a win that they needed after coming off of a loss, and Asia was huge and set a franchise record, but she also was huge in the game that they played on Friday night, which was a loss. 35 points, 12 rebounds, 3 assists too, but I mean, hey, 6 blocks. Like, this is incredible stuff. 56% from the field. What is Asia doing? Bro, like, the MVP is hers, man. Like, we're not going to get into that. But it was crazy because I want to just say that I felt in overtime, because that game did go to overtime. It was against the Sparks.
Yeah.
And the Sparks notoriously seem to like have the Aces number for some reason. And we know with De'Arica can't be joining the team. And there's some history between her, obviously, as a former player of the team, and pending, litigations, going on. So she just seems to step up big for that game. She's a first-time All-Star this year. I'm not first time, sorry, but she's an All-Star this year. And so it's a big game for her, and her teammates come out and support her in that way. And they gave the Aces a run for their money on the second night of a back-to-back. Not an excuse, but they gave them a run for their money. But Asia was huge. It was just a crazy weekend because the Aces lost. They were upset, but so were the Seattle Storm, right? That night by the Chicago Sky. And then the next day, the Liberty turn around and they get upset by the Indiana Fever. All of the top teams. And then the Lynx, who I was just bragging about last week, Callie, they went on like a little losing skid, So, I mean, Connecticut Sun went through it like a week before, but, it's like, this was a chance for the Aces to gain in the standings. So they didn't really lose anything because the Liberty lost, and the Lynx did drop a game, some games. So now there's not as much distance between them. And then the Storm also lost. So it didn't really shift the standings drastically. But what do you make of just all the top teams losing really quickly? What did you think of that?
I think the Aces have prepared me really well to answer this question, because I'm seeing a trend, which is that for the Aces, for example, I mean, I think we can start there with the Sparks. That was a game circled and dotted on their calendar, right? So they came out like, we are going to win this game. Whatever we need to do, that's the energy that the Sparks had. That's not necessarily the energy that the Aces had entering that game, right? They were like, hey, we're on a 6-game winning streak. Y'all are on an 8-game losing skid. We'd probably be all right. I mean, I'm not even putting words in their mouth. You can look at the post-game comments. Even Asia was like, we just didn't come with the energy that we needed to.
And that's natural. That's natural when you go in to face a team that's like that.
Exactly. So I think that even with the Liberty and the Fever, like you saw Sabrina Ionescu post-game saying, well, this is their Super Bowl game, which was received, in a mixed way. But I don't think that she meant anything. Like, she's not saying
right. Like, it's listen, people were offended by that, but
yeah, she's not wrong. But I think that that's like the common thread between all of these upsets. These teams that are trying to kind of come in and get the win that they're not supposed to get, they have the energy that they need. They have the mindset, and they, from the opening tip. And I think that's one thing about the WNBA. Like, you can't take any quarters off. I think even with the Aces, you saw that through 3 quarters, it was not looking good. Like, they just didn't look like they were giving effort. Becky Hammon pulled all her starters, which she has not done this season, and sat them behind on the bench. Okay. And when I asked her about it post game, she was like, I didn't like the effort on either side of the ball, and I'm not going to sit there and watch it. So I sent them a message. That's verbatim what she said. And then she felt like they responded. She felt like her reserve players responded, and then they were able to go on like a run at the end of the third quarter, a really good, solid fourth quarter defensively and offensively, and push it to overtime. But you cannot afford to do that in the WNBA. It doesn't matter what team you're playing. It's the same thing with the Fever and Liberty. It doesn't matter if you're up by 11 points in the fourth quarter against a team that you might think you're better than. Guess what?
Can't let down.
So I think it really is. It's these teams. We're at the halfway point of the season. These teams are going into these matchups with the quote unquote lesser teams, and they're like, okay, we can take a little bit of breath, and then they get shocked because that's the nature of this league. There's so much talent. That's why we're always calling for expansion. That's why we're always calling for,
Right.
all these things, because you're seeing the talent. There is not a single team in this league that you can take a day off against.
For sure. Well, look, it shows us that the teams that are like in the middle or who are lower, they're getting better. And it's great to watch in real time. The league as a whole is getting better. And it just puts pressure on those top teams to step their game up. I don't think in the grand scheme that it means that much. We still know who the top teams are in the W, but it was great
Absolutely.
theater for the weekend to watch. So looking
Absolutely.
forward, just continuing to look forward to the season as it plays out.
Mhm.
And we're nearing that all-star break, so let's stop here, but let's get into all-star because we got some things to talk about with the WNBA all-star rosters. Thank you, Callie, Lawson-Freeman.
Thanks.